Hey, hello art fam. It's time for me to swatch out my new Mijello Mission Gold watercolors for you. So I've got them all laid out here in the palette. There's 36 of them. I have my clear water, I've got my candle, I have my ceramic palette here, and I have, of course, my brush pig with some different size brushes in here. Might use my Jackson's number 6 squirrel hairbrush, and let's just jump into it. And as per style of my color cookbook, these are my Schminke colors. I'm going to make smaller swatches in this, but I'm going to keep the color true at the top and fade it down into sort of longer rectangles. So that crackling sound you hear off to the side is actually a candle with a wick that burns that smells like fireside, but the wick actually flickers and it makes like a fire-like sound. So you can actually hear it in the video, which surprised me. So hopefully that adds to the ambiance. Wow. That is pigmented. So these paints are very, very pigmented, literally the most pigmented paints I've ever used, even more than my old Grumboscher Winsor & Newton artist colors and my Schminke. They're pretty amazing, so I recommend these to everyone. So one thing I did notice was these paints are literally so pigmented that if you dip them into the wet paint, your water, and you dip your water brush into your clear water, it will dirty your water very fast. So a tip is to wipe off your brush on a paper towel before you wash it in your clear water, just to save you some time. Another thing of note is the light that I have overhead is an aught light bulb, so it is actually a very true neutral color. There's no yellow, and it's not more on the blue side. It's very neutral, so you should be getting somewhat of a clear representation of the colors here. So what I'm doing here to make these swatches are, first I wet the rectangle with just clear water, and that just helps it flow easier. It helps you get a really good gradient wash, and hopefully you'll see as I go along I get really fast at making the squares. The video is edited so that I'll take out all the boring parts, but I get really fast at making these squares. So if you're a beginner, make some swatches of your colors. That will hone your skills in a gradient wash. I'm going to do a full review on these paints. I also pulled out some of my old Winsor & Newton and Grumboscher traditional watercolors, artist grade, and I'm going to do a video comparing these and the Kuretake and my Schminke brand to those. And these are way more pigmented than those, so it's quite amazing. If you're a beginner and you're wondering whether to get, a larger set of more colors of cheaper brand, even student grade paints, or get lesser of the artist grade, I would say always, without a doubt, this is just my opinion, always get artist grade paints. You need to learn how to use them anyway. And unless you're desperate for money and you can't pay rent and you just have to watercolor, then fine, get a cheapy brand. But there's no point in doing that. You want to get archival quality, and you want to learn how to use the good paints and learn how the colors act on certain papers, and you're never going to do that with the student grade. I mean, I guess other people have different opinions on this, but that's my opinion. I personally, with my experience that I know now, I would get, if I were someone just starting out, I would get 3 artist grade very expensive colors if I could just afford that. Red, blue, and yellow, the primaries, and maybe one that you can't mix, like a good purple and like a burnt sienna, or just a couple of the really ones that are tough to mix, and just get the 3 that you can make all colors of the rainbow out of those 3 quality colors, rather than getting a lesser quality with more colors. Because think of it this way, if you're learning, you need to learn how to mix those colors anyway. It's almost like having money to afford the 36 colors or the 72. It's almost like having that money is like a crutch, or a cheat, because, if you buy those colors, then you never learn how to make them. So it's better to get 3 primary colors and learn how to mix those colors. Then you can reward yourself later with buying the pre-made color, because you know that you already know how to make that color. Maybe some advice would be, okay, buy your 3 colors that you can afford, and then make yourself a painting, and then maybe sell that painting. Tell yourself, okay, I'm going to sell 1 or 2 paintings, even at a lower price, but just enough so let's say you spend 6 or 7 hours in a painting and you sell it for a cheap price, like $200. That money, you can put that money towards your new watercolor set, even though you took a loss on the selling a painting at a lesser price. You can justify it by investing that in your future. So that's just some advice for someone starting out trying to pick watercolors. Okay, that being said, let's be real here. Most people, even students, have enough money for like a Kuritake's 36 set. That's $40 to $55. So, I mean, if you're an artist and that's your interest, or even if you're a crafter, which you're an artist too, if you're putting color on pages, you want the best color there is. So these paints too are they're so pigmented, it's almost hard to control. It's not hard to control, but it's different than the other paints that are of lesser quality and not as much pigment. It's very interesting because women might understand this. You talking about like makeup quality, there's really pigmented eyeshadows, let's say, and there's really crappy ones. And when you're putting them on, right, ladies, it's just really annoying when it's not pigmented. It doesn't do what you want to do. But there are some that are so pigmented that they can almost be hard to work with. So this is kind of the same way, but I stick with my initial advice in that you still need to learn how to handle proper watercolors, the really pigmented. You need to learn how to handle them. So you might as well just skip the crappy ones and go right to the quality. Another thing that can be difficult, or you want to keep in mind, is if your colors are too bright. And I find this when I use my Kuretake Zig marker pens. The reason I don't like them as much as using my watercolors, or certain colors in my watercolor sets, are they're too bright. And in the digital world, in TV and broadcasting or design on a monitor, RGB, red, green, blue, on in the pixels, is that we call that too hot. So if you look at it, it means it's almost glowing on the page or the screen, is that the color is too hot. And when you have that sort of look where it's too hot, almost neon, you completely get away from realism, and it can really look childlike. So if you look at your painting or your picture and you are using bold primary colors, or you pick out the colors. So in this set, I would say the colors this would happen with are the bright opera and then that one purple. Ironically, the ones that are not color fast, because they've got those bright neon pigments in them. and you use that too much in your picture, you can get that too hot looking vibe, or it ends up looking childlike. And a lot of beginning artists don't understand this, and they need to mute everything down because nature is not neon, right? So unless you're at 20,000 leagues under the sea. But so, you know, if you're painting organic things or people, just take a look at your picture, and if it's too hot, you know you need to tone things down. And the reason your picture can become too hot is if you make the beginner's mistake of just trying to color in items just using the one color that you were given. So let's say you did get that 36 color set and you didn't teach yourself how to mix colors or how colors work together. Then you're just going to use that orange right out of the pan. It's going to end up looking too hot because you didn't consider in nature there's cool shadows on that flower or whatever orange object you're trying to paint. And that's why it ends up looking sort of cartoonish or childlike, and it's almost like a flag when mature or experienced artists look at a picture and they see that too hot thing going on, or the, you know, painting right with the tube right out of just that one color. It's like a flag of an amateur artist. So you definitely don't want that flag on your work. So learn to mix the colors because it will really benefit you. So if you see artists using, you know, say in a green stem, and they're putting in yellow, and they're putting in red into the green stem, or even purple, people, you know, might think, or undeveloped artists might think, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Well, they know what they're doing because all those colors are in nature, and they know how the colors are going to mix together. And it always makes for a more interesting painting when you use all those multifaceted colors in your painting. So here's another tip. Don't let your squares touch each other here when you're making your swatches in your color cookbook, because you'll be really upset if you went to all this trouble and then your square starts bleeding into another one, because it's a big pain in the butt. You have to mop it up and do the whole thing over and stop it from bleeding over and stuff. So just be careful not to let them bleed into each other. And of course, in real life, in your paintings, those can be real happy accidents and create gorgeous blooms. But that's just a general tip in watercolor. If you're doing a flower, you sort of don't want to, you'll see artists go around and do a section, and then they'll skip a section and do another section that isn't touching it because they don't want the colors to bleed into each other. Can you hear my candle crackling away on the side there? Go with the blues. Ooh, it's purple. Okay, so the purple I'm painting here is called Bright Clear Violet, and there are only 4 not light fast paints in the Mission 105 colors. So the 4 are, and this is going to be very easy for you to remember this, so I like that they did this. The 4 are called Bright Opera, Bright Rose, Bright Violet, and Bright Clear Violet. And all 4 of those colors have only a 2-star out of 5 rating for Lightfastness. Now, what do all those have in common? Yes, they all have bright at the beginning of the name. So that's pretty easy to remember. Anything that's called bright is not going to be Lightfast. So as you can see, that purple I just painted, not the one before it, but the one before that, the bright pink, that's the Bright Opera. So there are 2 colors in this 36 color set. bright clear violet and the bright opera that aren't light fast. So I will remember that. But I'm kind of disappointed in Mijello that they didn't include any of the other 4 or 5 light fast purples, because now I don't have a choice to use those, right? Like they also have Compose Violet, Violet Lake, Ultramarine Violet, Compose Violet Deep, Shadow Violet. They have all those other violets that they could have put in the set, and I would have used those in paintings, but all they gave us was that bright clear violet and the opera. So I don't, that's really a bummer that they didn't include that. So now I guess I would go and buy, maybe I'll go buy a couple tubes. I'll buy a Compose Violet and a Violet Lake, or the Ultramarine Violet is just beautiful too. So's the Shadow Violet. They're gorgeous. So I guess I'll have to go buy those, but maybe Mijello did that on purpose. They are a company after all, and they do need to make money. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. All 4 of the not light fast are called, they have bright in the name. Here I am painting my favorite color. So I did a little doodle there because I'm all excited. And it's peacock blue. I love it in the Kuretake set. It's my favorite color there too, although it's not called peacock blue. But it's so funny too, because growing up, I always hated teal. And you know what? I don't think I hated this color, which is like, in jewelry it's known as a London blue. I always hated teal, which is like a bright greenish blue. But this peacocky blue, which is sort of more on the blue side, this is like my favorite color. And it's so funny because always growing up, people would ask me, what's your favorite color? And I would always say, I'm an artist. I have no favorite color. I have to have the whole rainbow. And I always said that because I never did have a favorite color. I really didn't. I always loved all the colors together. That was my favorite color, was all the colors. And I just, it's the same with me with religion. I'm like, but to pick one is elitist and separatist just by nature. You can't pick just one. And so I would always just pick the best out of all of them and incorporate that into my worldview. And that's what I did with colors. I'm just like, I can't pick one. I can't. And now I'm finding like really I get the feels when I see that peacock color. And I also get the feels when I see all shades of purple. For some reason I dig purple. See, this one I'm painting here, I don't like, I do not vibe with this color. It's not my color. Like ultramarine, like a cool bright blue, no, that's not up my alley. But so if I had favorites in this set, let's go through. I would say the ones that give me the feels, vermilion, the permanent red and the roses, I love those. The red violet, kind of, and of course the clear violet, yes, I love that. And my favorite blue is cerulean blue. I love it. And I think I'm painting that now. But it's funny, as you're watching this, know that I skipped a color. I actually made a mistake. I don't know what happened actually, but I missed swatching Cobalt Blue 1. And so I end up going back in the end and putting a little swatch next to that one I'm painting right here. But the weird thing is that Cobalt Blue 1, which I'm painting, I'm painting cerulean blue there, but that is very similar to the Cobalt Blue 1. So when I paint it beside it, they look almost identical. Anyway, so favorite colors, what else? I also love the Viridian, that's a very cool green. And then nothing else gives me the feels except for the burnt sienna and the burnt umber. I love those reddish browns, I just always have. And then, you know what, I like the Van Dyke brown as like a cool, sort of muted, like a nut brown. That's beautiful. So anyway, those are my favorites for anyone who cares. Yeah, I'm just going back and looking at my swatches again, and the similar looking ones are cobalt blue one and cerulean blue. They're two apart on the chart, but they look similar. And the one I'm painting here is called indigo, and I'm not crazy about that one. It's a very odd color, and it's not really what I think of when I think of indigo. So that naming convention is a little odd. And then now I'm painting here, we're getting into the greens, and this is Van Dyke green, and it's very dark and very foresty and very pigmented. So you'll notice here how I'm making the gradient wash. I start off with clear water, drop intense pigment at the top, and then as I bring the color down, I push the belly of the brush down instead of the tip. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I push the belly of the brush, which has more water in it, down as I bring the color down. So here's an example of the pigment just not behaving the same between colors. So once I get used to sort of, dealing with the one color, and then I go in to do another color, it's almost like some of them are a completely different story, and you kind of have to learn its nature and learn how it flows. And yeah, so that's the benefit of swatching out all these colors is learning how they behave, and also to practice your gradient washes. Also, I think it might be a little different. I'm dipping into my colors and they're not fully dry yet, so I tend to get too much of the pigment on the end of my brush, like a big glob of it. So you'll see me kind of mixing it on the paper there, and that's just mixing it into the water, because it's still wet. So when these colors have dried in my palette, there won't be these big globs of color coming onto my brush, so it'll be a little easier to work with. Okay, and here you're seeing another thing you don't want to happen. So there got to be a grease spot on my paper. So you don't want that to happen as much as possible. So I keep forgetting to recommend this, but you should always wash your hands. It's a simple thing to kind of remember to do, but wash your hands not only before you eat, but before you watercolor. Drill that into your head, because if you get a greasy fingerprint on your page, it doesn't matter so much here in your color swatch book. But it really matters in a painting. You'll freak out if you have this beautiful painting done and then you come across a grease spot, because you have to figure out how to hide that, because there's not a lot of ways to get that off. If anyone has any tips of how to deal with a grease spot on one of your amazing paintings and you don't know what to do, please leave it in the comments below, because that will help the whole artist community. I haven't heard a suggestion for that, so it would be really great if you do have any suggestions for how you've dealt with a grease spot on your painting. So it's really interesting. This light, sort of brighter green just behaves different than the others. Again, it's just one of those colors that's really strange that you have to kind of get used to again and again. And the next color I'm painting here is, I think this one is yellowish green. Yeah, it's yellowish green. It's really deceptive. See how you see up there, it just looks like a dark normal green, and then you put it down and it's really yellow. So that's why you should have a color chart made on watercolor of with the names written on there above your colors, because you can't tell from those dark blobs, right? So at the end of this video, I'll show you mine. I just made a color key, and I'm going to either tape it to the top of the container, or I'm gonna, I don't know, I'm trying to figure that out. I was thinking about laminating it. I don't want it to get ruined by the blobs of paint, so I'm trying to figure out if I should just put it on there face up on the paints, or if I should tape it to the roof. But I don't want the paints to get, you know, somehow leak on there or anything. I would have to make sure they're absolutely dry before I put them away, or close the lid type of thing. So I'll show you that at the end. I'll show you my color key that I made. It was really tough with this color because it's so pigmented. As you can see, I did a nice light wash there the first time because I didn't want to put too much of the paint on because it is darker and it's so pigmented, and that left me with too light of a wash. So then I go back a second time, then I had to go back a third time because the color was so dark. I didn't want to put too much on. Okay, so my swatches are mostly done now. I just wrote the word white there to paint the white over it to see how opaque it was. And it's still translucent, but it's still white. Then I put a strip of clear water down, and I'm just doing as I usually do here, just laying down a couple of colors and seeing how they mix and flow into each other. And I laid down a red and like a yellowy orange here, and the colors are just really sort of thick and creamy and just, you know, as you'd expect, beautiful. I think everybody, I'm not going to say everybody should get these, that's not really accurate, but if you do, if you are eyeing these, wow, you won't be sorry. These are unlike anything I've ever used. They really are in a category of their own. They're beautiful. I think what's happening is, you know, the Chinese and the Asians and Japanese and Koreans have been painting with quality paints for thousands of years. You know, they really do know quality just as much as the Europeans. And I think what's happening is people just, as we go into a global market, as things, you know, become globalized and products are easily shipped over here now, we are just discovering the quality and the beauty of Japanese and Korean paints that manga artists have known about for a long time, you know. Manga artists are probably like, yeah, we have some good stuff going on here. You know, you're just learning about it now. So I think these paints are just beautiful to use, and if you're eyeing them, you're not going to regret it if you get these. I can tell you, I'm just, you know, I am not sorry I got them at all. I'm blown away by them. I just love them. So if you need an excuse to get them, you have it, because they are quite amazing. Anyway, just thought I'd say that. So here I'm laying down that gorgeous blue. I think it's the cerulean blue. And then I just mixed it with the white, and you can see how, just for underwater or sky scenes, how beautiful that blue and white is. And here at the bottom, I'm planning on mixing the bright opera with the white, just to see if I can get like a light pink, just a really, really light baby pink color. And I seem to be able to do that. It's just beautiful. The paints are just so thick and gorgeous. So stay tuned. I'm going to, I do some swatches of my Grumbacher and Winsor & Newton colors, and I'm going to swatch them against the same like colors in this set and the Schminke and the Kuretake Zig colors, Gansai Tambi ones. So I'm gonna compare all the colors, and you're gonna see the pigment difference. Like, you're gonna be blown away. The Winsor & Newton are very not as pigmented as these. It's wild. Anyway, so here I'm just gonna paint a little circle here. I'm gonna show you the creaminess and the thickness of these paints. It's almost like, I can see it's almost on the level of like liquid acrylics, you know. They really are on that level, and I can see why manga artists love these. So when I do the inner yellow circle, and then I put red around it, and then I kind of go with my brush and see how it kind of floods into the center, but it's got a thick feeling to it, you know. There's that's the difference, you know. There is luminosity that we love in watercolors, but there's also a thickness to these that just sort of border over into, you could really go crazy with illustrative styles with these, like manga style, but they're on the level of like acrylic, liquid acrylics, you know. So you can go either way. You can water them down and go with the watercolor look, but you can also, you know, get them really thick. I mean, look at that. It's so pigmented, and it looks like acrylics. I'm just doing a second coat of the black here because I didn't think I went as thick as I did with the other paints. But you see the sepia to the left of it? It just doesn't seem like a sepia color to me. It seems, well, it does, but I think that there'd be just a touch more brown in it. But then the Van Dyke brown before that seems more like a sepia to me. Anyway, so here I'm just gonna label all the colors, and in this process, this is where I actually discovered that I missed swatching a color, which is very strange because I really did take care to not mess up the order of these colors. Like I kept them, you know, and when I squirted out my tubes, I put them right back into the box in the order that they were in, because I just wanted to make it easy for myself and not screw it up. And that's the irony that I did. Anyway, sometimes you take care to do that and it happens anyway. So maybe I'll just fast forward through this, and I write down all the names, and then you'll see me swatch the cobalt color that I missed. All right, you'll see here the little swatch down there in the left of the cobalt blue. I just put that there, but it's a very similar color to the cerulean blue. And here I'm just cleaning up my ceramic palette, which I totally advise everyone should get one of these for sure. Mine's just an old food plate, like a serving plate, and I'm gonna do a video on that actually. Stay tuned on the plastic palettes compared to ceramic. So here are all the colors written out, and I made mistakes, and so I scratched them all out and relabeled them. Anyway, it happens, and it's so funny because I took care for it not to happen. But anyway, there's the colors, and now I'm going to show you how I made my color key, just a piece of watercolor paper to keep in with the paints so that I can see which color is which when I go to dip my brush into the paint. Alright, so now that my color cookbook swatches are in, I'm going to show you the color key that I made for the colors. So here it is. So what I did was I laid them out the way they are in the pan. So take care that you want to set it up the way you open it. So set it, make sure, because it comes upside down, so you might set it up backwards if you don't take care with this. So set it up how you would put it down and how you would open it normally. See, some people put them in that way, right? But that would be upside down. So if you're gonna open it this way, you want it like that. And then so I put my color key like this, and I just put it right in there. I just cut a piece of Strathmore watercolor paper. This is what I used, 9 by 12, and then I cut it in this way. It's the 400 series. And then I just, I started with the corner, and then I did the top, and then it's easier to fill in that way. And then as I came over here, I put this one here, and this one here first, and then I filled in these four. It's just easier visually to do it that way. And then it's easier to fill those in, and then I just did the same here. Did the corners first. And then after I wrote the names there, so I know. And I wrote these kitty corner diagonal. I wrote them diagonal, and it all fits in there. And I will not be using this as a palette because, as I'll show you, that I'm going to do a video on using plastic palettes as opposed to ceramic. And then this is a little preview, I even went and tried to do certain things to surfaces of different palettes. I have one here, I'll show you in the video, so stay tuned. I scratch it up and I test different things, so stay tuned for that video. So anyway, leave some comments if you have some suggestions. I'm not sure whether I want to just plunk it like that, because who cares if, oh, see, it just happened. See, that's interesting. So it will get, there is somewhere where there it is, right there. So it will get the back dirty, so I'm not sure if I want to do that. Look, there's some there already. Wow. Because I don't want this to get dirty. I'm kind of anal like that. I don't like my stuff getting, once I do it and I take the care to do it, I don't like it getting messed up. So, you know, I could plunk it down there, or I could tape it in here, but then that would make it, you know, face down, go like that, right? I was thinking of laminating it. I might do that. That seems like a lot of work. Or for now, I mean, if it was glued in like this, there is kind of like ½ an inch there though. It shouldn't get dirty if I do that. Anyway, I'll figure it out, but if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comment box. I'd like to hear. But that's my my color key. So you don't have to draw it squares if you don't want to. Just do circles. But like I said, do it this way first and then fill in. It's easier that way. So, and then there's my color cookbook entries. I really hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you didn't mind me blabbering through the whole thing. Some of you said you'd rather hear me talk through it, so that's what I did. All right, guys, take care. Have a great day. Bye.